All right, good morning, Doug. Let's talk about this BRICS currency that's out there. Lots of hype about it. It's been for years, really talked about it, but really escalating over the last 6 months. And everybody feels like it's almost imminent at this point. Is it real? What does it mean? What do you think?
I've come to the conclusion that it's going to be a failure, but at the same time, something like it is necessary. And the reason is that nobody internationally wants to use the US dollar, but the US dollar, there's trillions and trillions, nobody knows exactly how many trillions of them are outside the US and being used for international commerce and the pricing of everything. So you need something better than the US dollar since it's being inflated out of existence by its issuer, but there's no real replacement. So this the BRICS is an effort to come up with something better. You can't use the euro because the euro is an Esperanto currency with different monetary policies between these different countries, and people are going to start leaving the euro in the future because, like I said, I've said often, if the dollar is an I owe you nothing, which it is, the euro is a who owes you nothing. So they need to come up with something. So the BRICS is an effort to get out of the dollar system, but it's not going to work. It's not going to work.
Why not?
It's not going to work because the nice thing about the brick, in theory, is that it's supposed to be gold backed. But if something is gold backed, redeemable in gold, a basic question is, okay, that's great, but who keeps the gold? Where's that gold going to be stored? And can you trust the person that's storing the gold? And why have something that's gold backed instead of just using gold? I mean, does it mean that they're planning on manipulating the paper currency instead of using the real thing? You use a derivative of the real thing. Are they planning on manipulating it, or let's say inflating it when it's important or necessary? So, and none of these people trust each other. That's the thing. So, I don't think it's going to work. But they have to get rid of the dollar because, as this recent thing with the Russians proved, uh, if you deal in the currency of your adversary, he can screw you over, which is exactly what the Americans did to the Russians. So you don't want to use their currency because when you do, it all clears through New York and the US government knows who's buying and selling and doing what. You don't want any of that stuff. You got to get rid of the dollar, both because it's a hot potato, it's being inflated out of existence. If there's how many? Take a wild guess. 20 trillion US dollars outside the US. At some point, because the major export of the US for the last 40 years has not been, wheat or Boeings or computers or anything, the real, it's been dollars. And it's artificially raised the standard of living of Americans above what it otherwise would be. We ship out the dollars and they ship in the Mercedes and the Sonys. Hey, that's a great trade. So our standard of living is artificially higher, and it's given the US government a lot of flexibility to do stupid things that if they hadn't been able to do that, they wouldn't have been they would have been prevented from doing more stupid things. So I'm glad, in a way, to see the dollar no longer be used as the international reserve currency. If it was honestly managed, yes, it's very convenient for Americans. You just take your dollars, put them in your wallet, and almost anybody anywhere in the world will accept them. But if you're a Russian or a Chinese or a Zimbabwean or a Brazilian, once you leave your home country with your rubles or whatever the yuan or whatever it is, well, nobody will take them. You got to change them. So it's inconvenient. So the US has destroyed that. Uh, but another reason why, see, these this currency is, in the announcements that I've seen, they've called it a trading currency. How's that differ? How's a trading currency differ from a normal currency? I think what it's going to wind up being is like the what is that stupid thing that the IMF has?
SDRs.
SDRs. It's going to be like that. So they're not going to print up 100 brick bills. Oh, let's call the new currency the brick. You're not going to be able to get a note for like $100 bill. You're not going to be able to get a 100 brick bill. It's going to be a fantasy currency that these governments can just use for account, and they can't give it to the average guy gold backed as it is, because if it's really gold backed, it's going to give the average guy a way to insulate himself from inflation. It's going to give him too much power to have an international unit that he can leave China with a suitcase full of bricks and change them. Oh, well, it's Zimbabwe, and that's going to be a really helpful thing, because the Zimbabwe dollar is worth, if they even have it anymore, is worth zero, zero, zero outside of Zimbabwe. At least the yuan, you can trade it once you get elsewhere if you get out. But no, it's going to fall apart, because these governments get together. They're like crabs in a crab pot. They'll eat each other as soon as one of them gets hungry and is bigger than the others. And so it's not going to work.
One of the things that's newly dawned on me about this whole thing is that, I was thinking of it as, something that replaces the dollar in, that's an alternative currency that might be gold backed, that is like both an internal unit and a unit for the international trade. And so you just said that they're talking about this as a trading currency. And so when I started to understand it like that, it's like, I mean, this is the way what gold was used by the US, if I'm not mistaken, after it was illegal for Americans to own gold after 1933. I mean, gold was still used in international trade flows, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. It's like the dollar before 1971, when you could change your dollars, your US dollars, for $35 an ounce worth of gold. But after 1971, the only purpose of gold was that it was a link that kept the Fed legally from printing up more dollars, because there was a gold backing domestically. Foreigners couldn't get it. American citizens couldn't get the gold, but it acted as a limit, a theoretical limit on the number of dollars they could create. So I guess that's what this is going to be all about. Nobody's going to brick bill.
Wouldn't you have to have like a balance trade account in order to even, because you think about, as like China is a export driven economy. And so under their system, they would be accumulating gold. They can't actually, the kind of economy that the US has would never work. And any country that's primarily a consumer, would there be real caps on its consumption, because they'd eventually run out of gold in the country. Does that make sense or not?
Yeah, it does. When you use actual gold, when you've spent all your gold with balance of trade deficits, in other words, you're buying all these Mercedes and you're paying for them in gold. The gold's all gone. You can't buy any more Mercedes. That's it. Now you got to do something to get the gold back so you can buy stuff. And in a free market world, these things balance. But in a phony paper world, you can basically live on credit for years. And I think what's going to happen here, and the reason that the BRIC countries don't want to use dollars, there's lots of reasons why. The reasons that the Russians showed why you don't run out and use it. And you might get stuck. You might get stuck with an old aid card. In other again, let's say there's 20 trillion US dollars outside the US, and it rests on nothing but faith. Faith. And faith can blow away a pile of feathers in a hurricane. So everybody starts dumping dollars. Nobody uses them except from habit and convenience, using the US dollar around the world. So nobody has to use them outside of the US. They're used because of habit and convenience. Everybody uses them, so everybody else uses them. It's it's been a useful medium of exchange. But at some point, when faith blows away like a pile of feathers in a hurricane, everybody will start dumping them at once. But to whom? They're not going to sell them to other foreigners. Well, you can always take them back to the US and trade them for stock certificates, for real estate titles, for real goods. So those $20 trillion, once again, guessing on the number, that have been exported and raised the American standard of living, when they come back, the real wealth or title thereof is going to go out of the US, and worse, or as bad, those dollars are going to come into the US bidding for things, and inflation will explode. So it's not just you don't want to use dollars because the US government can do what they did to the Russians, but because you're sitting on a time bomb that will go off at some point. Why will it go off? Among other reasons, because just recently, the interest on the national debt has passed the $1 trillion per year mark, and it's going higher because the deficit's getting higher, more interest to be paid on that, and interest rates are going higher. I think they're going a lot higher. People forget how high they got back in the early 80s. We're talking the US government paying 15, 16, 17%. The US government paying that much money, paying that much for money. So yeah, the dollar is a hot potato. It's an old maid card.
So there's a lot of incentive for people to get away from the dollar. But the reason the reason, would you say that one of the reasons, why the BRICS thing won't work is because it really requires all these governments to switch their economic systems from a credit and debt-based system to something that's just more honest. If they're actually legitimately gold backed, they got to have the gold, and they can only trade based upon, some reserve of that gold.
Yeah, I don't understand why these governments, if they're basically going to be trading between each other, at least with the euro, which is a phony currency, at least people can have 100 euro notes in their wallets, and hundreds of billions of people, as well as companies, can use it day to day. That's not going to be the case with the BRIC. Sounds to me like it's going to be like the SDR. Almost certainly will be, because none of these governments trust each other, because at least with the euro, it's basically Europeans, common culture. There's a certain element of trust involved, but you're involving all kinds of countries from all over the world here that are going to get BRICS on some basis. This is a fantasy. I mean, if these governments were willing to give that much power to the people, to use a Marxist phrase, they would just let them use gold, period. And gold is reasonably priced right now. It's not too cheap or too dear, in my opinion. At, say, $2,000, but there's only 6 or 7 billion ounces of gold in existence. Less than 1 ounce for every person on the planet. I think the price of gold is going to have to go way up if we're going to use gold as day-to-day money, which we should. But we're not going to use it for day-to-day money because it gives way too much power to the average people. It means that fractional reserve banking would blow up and disappear. It's not going to happen.
That would create a global depression that would be massive, wouldn't it? Even if just that stopped, it would
totally collapse of the stock market, collapse of real estate prices, collapse of the credit markets, everything would have to be sorted out again, which would be a good thing. But they're not going to let it
Painful.
happen until the 100-story building falls of its own weight instead of intelligently suffering a controlled demolition where at least everybody, oh, it's coming. I better get out of the way. No, they're not going to do that.
So,
And the brick is not going to work.
so it's fundamentally, you think, just like an SDR like innovation that basically has been around for a long time to get no real legitimacy anywhere because it's just a phantom anyway.
Yeah, that's right. It's nice they're talking about it as a gold back unit. That's super that they're talking about it. But the way they're structuring it, it is not going to work. It's like if I wanted to issue my own currency, and I wanted to issue my currency, and I say, "Hey, it's gold back. Accept this." People say, "Well, it's good that it's gold back," but people that don't know me going to trust me. Well, no, they're not. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
And this is being issued by a bunch of criminals, essentially. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Hmm.
But
There is a lot of hype around it.
They got to get out of the dollar. So I think what they're going to wind up doing is eventually trading gold between the way it used to be done.
What do you think? I saw that Bobby Kennedy yesterday or the day before suggested that, the U.S. currency be backed up by a minuscule percentage by hard things. And he talked about gold and platinum and even Bitcoin being part of that. But the fact that I think it's interesting, this has even entered the conversation. It's on the back of the BRICS thing, talking about the currency need to be gold backed.
Yes, you're absolutely right. And, I guess we've talked about Bobby Kennedy before and his, various problems from a philosophical point of view. But it gives me the impression, I know he's a politician and they're congenital, pathological, and enthusiastic liars as a class. But Kennedy really does seem more honest than the rest of them, more sincere, more thoughtful, better read, more intelligent. And the fact that he's saying things like this, that he wants to integrate gold, Bitcoin, platinum, whatever it is, doesn't matter, into the US monetary system gradually. Oh, he's thinking about these things. He's talking to people about them.
Yep.
I got to say that of all the potential Democrat candidates, he's the only one that's acceptable. And he may not be, under the circumstances, a bad guy, even though he's still swimming in a cesspool. I mean, he may not be a bad choice. And out of the Republicans, I mean, Trump has no philosophical core, but, people have said, I don't know that maybe Bobby will come over to the Republican Party and be Trump's vice president candidate.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting thinking of them matching up. I know that Bobby has a lot of Republican support because he's basically got the dissident vote at this point. I mean, Trump, has I'd say the MAGA vote, which is kind of his core base. And he did have the dissident vote. Then some of those dissidents have converted to MAGA, I think. But Bobby's got the dissident vote. The people who don't like the vax mandates, who don't trust authority, who don't like war, the anti-state people basically are all, they all support him. And a lot of those are on the Republican side, I think.
Yeah, that's right. The problem with Bobby is that he's an eco warrior, global warming type guy, although he doesn't seem insane like a lot of these other people do, but still, that's where his head's at. And he has come out and said, anyway, that he's not going to confiscate anybody's guns, but Obama and Biden have said that too. So,
Yeah.
But, if you're going to have a Democrat Party, Bobby Kennedy's seems like he's absolutely the best of the bunch.
Yeah, no, I think there's no doubt about it. And it is the thing that's really refreshing about his ideas and listening to him talk is that he is intelligent and has thought things through. And he's not like a Mike Pence who basically has a list of talking points and is always like, come back to the talking points, you know? He has thoughtful ideas and you can disagree with them and, but they're actually thoughtful. But I think he's politically calculating too. There's definitely like, he knows he's picking up this dissident vote.
Well, not only that, but he's going to have a cabinet and he's going to have advisors. And I'm sure the wrong kind of people are going to glom onto him, as always happens. You get these second tier people that are really the dangerous ones.
They really are.
All the countries around the world, they steal the money, they pull the strings. So situation is pretty hopeless, I'm afraid.
Pretty hopeless, but it is great. Just the idea of associating money with something actually real rather than the unrestrained credit, whatever mess we've got going now. So it's good to hear.
Exactly. And even though I don't think the BRIC currency is going to work unless they make some radical changes in it, and they should just use gold, not gold-backed currency. But the fact they're talking about that, and Bobby's talking about that, it's a glimmer of hope on the scene, actually. So
It really is.
and I love to see good things happen and see some reason for being not totally despairing about how bad the depression is going to be.
Got to be rough no matter what. I think there's no way out of that. You got to the credit problem, all the debt is such a problem. There's just no way out of it. That's easy.
A lot of people are owed money because there's so much debt in the world, and either they're not going to get the money or they're going to get the money, but the money's not going to be worth very much. That's the way it's shaping up at the moment. So it's nice that they're talking about something to do with gold and trying to thinking about solving the problem anyway.
Okay. So just to wrap it up on the BRICS currency, it's coming, but you think it'll be a failure akin to basically what the SDR is.
That's how I'll place my bets at the moment. And
Okay.
I will continue accumulating gold coins and silver coins. Oh, what else are you going to do with your capital? Well, speculate in certain stocks. Oil stocks, still very, very cheap, high dividends, great future for all kinds of reasons that we talk about elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And gold stocks, because with gold at say 2000 and the all-in sustaining costs of producing mines at 1200, they're doing really well. They're really cheap right now, absolutely relative to other things. Of course, the explorers and the developers are different than the producers, but still, uranium stocks relates to energy situation. And there's a few other things that are interesting.
Yeah, and if people want the specific ideas you've got, they can join our private member group file, and we've got a number of specific recommendations you've made in there.
Yeah, that's true, and I think they've basically all been pretty good.
And there's some good dividend payers in there too, which is nice.
Yeah, but one of the major advantages of the file is that to get to know other people that see things the same way that we do, because there are not many of us out there, I don't think.
That is one of the best things people have gotten out of it, simply because a lot of people, especially in the height of the COVID era, felt like they were completely and utterly alone, at least, and even, basically being gaslit every day about reality. And so being with some like minds that you can actually discern what's real and not real, I think is one of the most important things today. It's hard to know.
I hate to feel like I'm selling a product, but on the other hand, I think we're selling a valuable service.
Yeah, people don't have to buy. If they're not interested, that's fine. But
No,
if
it's
they're looking
okay.
for like-minded people, then that's the place to go.
No, this is the nice thing. I don't need the money. You don't need the money. But you can't provide a valuable service for nothing. So I guess we're at a position where we got to tell people about it.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
well,
true. So if you want to know more about our file, then there'll be a link in the description below. You can go check it out. If it's for you, sign up. If not, that's great. Keep watching the videos.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, I think we'll leave it there for today, Doug. So BRICS will be a failure, even though everyone hopes it'll be a success.
That's the bottom line, I think. But I wish them well. I wish them well.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, awesome. Thanks.